I'm Kristen, and this is Marketing for Christians 101, because Jesus said we should be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So we have an awesome blessing today. We're here with Brad Silverman, the writer and director of Selfie Dad, because as I mentioned in the first episode, Dick Rolfe, the founder of the Dove Foundation, said marketing is one of the biggest issues in Christian movies. And Brad has some excellent wisdom to share with us because he has hit it out of the park on every level. And so we're going to be learning a lot from Brad. So Brad, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Hey, Kristen. Thanks for having me here. This is really fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Brad, you mentioned about marketing starting before the movie's actually made. So can you explain that to our viewers?
Yeah. So, my primary function within the film business is as a writer-director. But nothing happens if you can't get the project made. And I've found over the years that maybe you can get a project made, but can you get a second project made? Mm-hmm. And if your first project doesn't do well, and it doesn't, if it's not by some definition successful, however you determine success, it's hard to get the second one made, and then the third one made, and then the fourth one, the fifth one, and so on. Mm-hmm. And I'm at a weird place where I've been doing this for so long now that I've kind of learned that I need to think about the marketing, and mm-hmm. specifically maybe the way I phrase it is, how are you going to get this to market? Yeah. Who's going to watch your movie and why? Whatever, it could be movie, TV show, whatever. So for me, I've got to a place where I have to think through the entire marketing strategy before I even write a script. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll write a synopsis, and I'll be in discussion with distributors and marketers and so on. And I'm at a place where it's like, if I have to convince them that it's a great idea, then I don't make the movie.
Right.
So I guess in the broadest sense, Kristen, if I write a synopsis and then people read this, I'm talking about a one-page synopsis. Literally, it has to be one page, not 1 page and a half. Just mm-hmm. Literally, if I can't define it in a page, then I'm not ready yet. Yeah. So I'll write a one-page synopsis. I'll circulate that around. If people aren't really excited about it, then I don't go to the next phase, which is expanding it into a treatment into a script. So mm-hmm. I guess in the broadest sense, marketing to me begins before I even will write the first word of a script. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's an exception from what you've seen of other Christian filmmakers? Do the other Christian filmmakers that you see out there, do they look at it in those terms where they start with marketing before they even start with the story? Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there. Absolutely, they're out there. But I'd say the majority probably not. I'll say pattern I've seen I've been in the Christian film space for about 12 years now, 11, 12 years. And look, we all learn from our mistakes and learn the hard way. But I would say more often than not, in the Christian space, people feel led to make a movie. Mm-hmm. Or led to write a script. They'll somehow get funding, or they'll fund it themselves, or some people will believe in it, or people will do it for free, or whatever. And they really feel like God has blessed it. And again, I'm not making a commentary on this, this is more of an observation. Right. And in that process, I don't think a lot of thought has gone into, okay, who's going to watch this movie? Mm-hmm. What are the distinctives about the movie? So I guess in the short answer is, I don't think the marketing is considered enough in the conceptualization of projects.
I agree with you completely, because my husband was in advertising for 35 years at the newspaper here in town, and so he's always thinking in terms of marketing and advertising. So we found that to be the case as well with Christian filmmakers. Exactly what you said. They talk about being led by God. So do you think it's just lack of experience on their part?
Yeah, I think maybe the question that I often think is, just because you can make it, should you make it?
Exactly.
I think it is something that is definitely neglected. And I assume lack of experience. And I think one tendency I see, and I'm in a position where I was in the secular film business for many, many years, and then now I've been over a decade in the strictly faith and family. For the films I make are more on the nose Christian. Yeah, I think people can over spiritualize things,
Right.
and I guess what I mean by that is they will really sense being led by God to do something, and I think the disconnect becomes, okay, I really felt God led me to write this script, whatever this script is, and then God brought in the money, then God brought in the actors, and I don't doubt that for a second. God is sovereign over all.
Right.
But then where it disconnects is, therefore, it will be financially successful.
Right.
And it's that last part that more often than not is not the case. And then I've seen so many filmmakers look back going, what the heck happened? You know, God opened this door, and this actor came in, and then this happened, and then we got this location for free, and there's all these wonderful, exciting experiences, and they are. But then, gosh, therefore, this will be financially successful, and all the investors will get paid back, and everyone will make a lot of money, and everyone will be blessed, and we're going to make a lot more movies. That last part rarely happens. And I do think, look, you do the best you can. You do the best you can. God is sovereign. You try your best to put your marketing ducks in a row as best as you can.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess not enough thought is paid into, what are the distinctives that are going to make my project separate, that are going to separate my project from the rest of the field.
I agree completely, because like Kevin and I are primarily authors, and he's also a children's book illustrator, so we got into this as authors, and I confess I felt the same way too, that like our first guest, Kim Reynolds, talked about that mentality that you feel led to do something, and then if it doesn't work out, you kind of think, well, maybe it really wasn't from God in the first place. And I see that I kind of fell prey to that mentality. So even this discussion is helping me to see, as Kim said, you have to do your due diligence in marketing. And with you, you're being even more wiser than a serpent by getting out in front of it and doing it on the front end, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you're saying that, what popped in my head, it was a couple of years ago probably. I was asked, a group of about 3 younger filmmakers. They asked me, would I let a distributor read the script before we made the movie? And obviously, from what I said a few minutes ago, you know my answer. And I kind of paused for a minute, and I had to do like a conversion in my head going, let them read the script. Are you kidding me? They're reading the pitch, the synopsis. If they're not excited about the project, I don't write the script. So it's more than just letting them read it. The people whose responsibility it is to take it to market need to be as excited as possible about the project. It's so hard to make movie. For me, other people I'm sure have it much easier. Yeah. For me, it's really hard to get funding, to make projects, to get them to market, and to do the next one. And so for me, if those things aren't in place from the beginning, I wouldn't even touch the film. And I have. There's been a few times I've walked away from the project very early on in the project, even if I felt really strong about it or I'm passionate about it. I just felt, you know what, I just need to walk away, because if I'm the only one passionate about it, then maybe my passions need to be tweaked a little bit.
That's interesting, because you mentioned the distributors. I was thinking of investors. See, I don't even really know all the ins and outs of the industry. So when you say distributors, you're talking like Pureflix, Bridgestone, those types of companies and people, or what?
Yeah, it could be anybody. Certainly the ones you mentioned, absolutely, they would fall in that category. If I guess I go back to front. I think about, what is my log line? What is my one hook in the film? One thing. What is one thing that might distinguish a project?
Yeah.
If I can get the distributors, yes, it could be Pure Flix or Grissom or whomever, or bigger studios, could be anybody. If they get excited about it, now I have more confidence to now go to the investors.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
You know, my kids like to eat every single day.
Yeah.
And so, like, I can't be, maybe I could convince investors to invest in a project and maybe get it made, but I want them to be successful. I want them to get their return back and make a few dollars and have the joy of being a blessing because of the messaging of the project. But if I don't know that legit distributors whose job it is to get it to market, they're not emotionally attached to the project, they might get passionate about it, but their job is to look at the X's and O's and say, yes, I believe this project will do this number. And they give you a range, a low, medium, high. This is what we project this project to be. If they're not on board with that, then I cannot, with a clear conscience, approach investors to say, hi, here's why I think this is a smart thing to do.
That's amazing, because I've never even heard that sentiment expressed. I've always heard it as, how do we get investors? And usually it's how do we get donors, because Christian filmmakers often look at it as it's a write-off and they don't even attempt to make the money back, much less to reach the distributors. And
yeah, and there are people who are, and I love it, I'm grateful, and I've had them, where it's such a message-driven investment. Yeah. It's a missions thing where they are, going to make a tax write-off type investment or donation. Great. Even that's really, really, really hard though too. Yeah. You know, I mean, is that easier to get people to donate a few $100,000 to your project? Well, maybe, but I don't think a lot of people, relatively speaking, are able to do that either though.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say that you might have a very, very wealthy individual or couple or family or estate or whatever. They've got millions of dollars, and to depart from a couple $100,000, they wouldn't feel the sting of that.
Right.
However, they might get super excited about your project and feel it's going to impact a lot of people and get very excited. The problem becomes, as excited as they are, if there's exception to this, but here's a general default that I've seen. If they're successful enough to have that type of expendable income, they probably have lawyers and accountants around them. And if they have lawyers and accountants around them, man, my nickname is, I call them all Lenny. All the lawyers and accountants, they're all named Lenny in my mind. So, and I tell it to people, I tell even to people that I work with, I go, Lenny, you'll never go for that. Lenny's job is not to make the rich investor feel good about his investment. Lenny's job is to protect that investor's money.
Yeah.
That's why Lenny is hired. If Lenny, the accountant, blows the money, well then Lenny's loses a client.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm always mindful of that robotic Lenny who his or her job is to detach from emotion,
right?
Detach from the cause and say, this is or this is not a wise investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, there are times I've had it where, the investor will say, forget it, I'm doing it. And I've had that, and that's great. Yeah. But I want it to work on both ends. I want Lenny to be happy, and I want the investor to be happy. Yeah. It may not work out.
Yeah.
God may have other plans, and they may lose money. But at least going into it, I'd like to have at least a plan in place that the plan could change. The plan might not work. How about this? You could have a once-a-century worldwide pandemic, and all the theaters might close.
Yeah, really.
I had that happen to me once.
Yeah, we all did.
That's a true story.
We all did.
So what do? I mean, you don't lose sleep over that. If that's not an act of God, I don't know what is.
Yeah, right.
So all that to say, nonetheless, going into it, I'd like to have, I think in terms of the business. I think when you say marketing is just an element of the business. It is a film business.
Mm-hmm.
And, people can criticize and say, oh, you need to be passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I don't think I sacrifice the creative, but I've got 30 stories to tell. Don't we all? Everybody's got a bunch of stories to tell.
Yeah.
So just, I'll try to pick the ones that have the angles and the marketing hooks so that distributor signs off, marketing signs off, investor signs off, so that when it gets to Lenny's looking at the potential profit and loss statement going, okay, it's a risk, as all films are, but you know what? Compared to films B, C, and D that we've been pitched, this one seems to have their act together.
You're the first film person that I've connected with who's ever spoken that way about approaching the distribution first, and that is wise. Like, for example, there are a lot of indie Christian filmmakers here in Michigan. Compass Film Academy is a Christian film college in Grand Rapids, where Michael Jr., the lead actor in your movie Selfie Dad, is from Grand Rapids. So for, let's say, like your indie Christian film producer anywhere who is always thinking in terms of, how do I get investors or donors? What do they need to do differently?
Yeah, that's the tough question. That's the hard one. Because, of the 4 features that I've had the privilege of directing, I wrote them all and directed them all. Mm-hmm. If I went through one by one how the funding came through on each of them, not only could no one else imitate that, I couldn't imitate that.
Okay.
It is so odd how the funding has come in. But, so I guess I want to leave something practical on this question,
right.
but I do need to back up a half a step and start with the philosophical.
Yeah.
Because if the philosophical is not there, the practical, I don't think might help a little bit.
Right.
From a philosophical standpoint, getting funding for projects, the second hardest thing on a film is distribution. And when I say distribution, you can get distribution. There's 1,000 distributors. It's not hard to get distribution. That's easy. It's hard to get good distribution.
Okay.
It's hard to get distribution that legitimately benefits the filmmaker, the investors, and so on. You can make a movie and get it into, an online catalog for DVD sales, and you maybe move, a few thousand units, and that's fine. But if you invested even 100, 200, 300,000 into a movie, even if it's really small, no one's going to see that money back.
Yeah.
So I would say philosophically, the way I approach it, Kristen, is I think probabilities.
Okay.
What increases my probability? If good distribution is the second hardest thing, by far the hardest thing is funding.
Okay.
It's not even close. It's funding, and then there's everything else making the movie. Everything else is easier than funding, in my experience.
Okay.
And so, in funding, I need to increase the probability that it's a wise investment. So if that's in place, and you look and say that is here's a legit profit and loss statement, here's a legit breakdown, here's some spreadsheet, here's the data, here's the comps, you're selling real estate now.
Okay.
This is why this home is worth X, Y, Z.
Okay.
And then, what in this space, what some people will say, well, my film is like the Kendrick brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with the Kendrick brothers.
Right, yeah.
After my films like Facing the Giants, Fireproof, Courageous, War Room, and so on. Mm-hmm. Man, those guys are so one of a kind. You cannot build your business model against that. Mm-hmm. That is, I've seen so many people lose money, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I guess to hone in on the question at hand, you can tell I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's why I'm down. I have no idea.
No, you're way over my head.
so I guess in a nutshell, get your data in order.
Okay.
It's not yes, get your vision there. Your vision needs to be placed.
Yeah.
Get your data in order. And once you have your data in order and you have your statements that show here's a decent investment, then and only then, I don't know. I mean, you go after anybody and everybody. I will go online, and I did this on the second film I did. I was looking at other Christian films, and I went through every production company affiliated with them.
Mm-hmm.
And every agent affiliated with them. And I called them all, and I sent them transfers to everybody. And so I'm approaching them, and they're getting approached by tons of people like me. So it's no magic to it. I'm just pounding the pavement. It's all selling. I hate to say it like that, but it's selling your product.
Yeah.
And as I looked at every possible production company, and I approached everyone I could think of, and I just kept sending the trailers, and then someone says, "Hey, that looks kind of good." Mm-hmm. Then I can say, "Well, here's the marketing plan. Here's the strategy." Okay. So, I don't know if that helps, but get your ducks in a row on the philosophical side, and have paperwork that shows why this is a smart investment. Okay. Have brilliant, trailers and what have you, if you can, and then just approach everyone you can. And if they don't know, who do they know, and who do they know, and you just keep going and going and going and going, and maybe someone will say, "Yeah, let's go to the next step."
What sort of data do you have, like a spreadsheet of actual numbers, that sort of thing? And do you present it first to the distributor and then to investors?
Yeah, I do. And by the way, everything I'm saying is that we could do 7 episodes on, what not to do. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm really good at that. This is an expert on what not to do.
I've never heard anybody saying what you're saying. This is very eye-opening.
Yeah, well, these are things I've had to learn over a couple decades of hitting my head against the wall and such. Yeah. I guess I like using the Kendrick brothers, because that is the death blow for most Christian filmmakers. Is they write a script and they say, well, this is like Fireproof,
right.
or a $30+ million box office. Yeah. And the way I would approach that, Kristen, is approaching the distributor. I would say, okay, here's for example, who is the first person that's going to buy the ticket, assuming the theaters are open? Mm-hmm. Who's the first person that's going? This is what I ask young filmmakers too. Who's the first person that's going to buy a ticket to go watch your movie? If they say, well, people who like family films, mm-hmm. or if they say Christians, or if they say people who watch the Kendrick brothers movies, then they haven't thought it through enough, mm-hmm. in my opinion, in my experience. Mm-hmm. Okay, you need to be more specific than that. Yeah. When I say data, we have enough data in the Christian film space now to know who's purchasing the tickets.
Right.
And I learned this from the Christian music industry. There's a dear friend who's now with the Lord. His name's Bill Hearn. Mm-hmm. He was a big shot in Christian music. And I was just a dear friend, and he just taught me so much, maybe about 10 years ago. And we used to have lunch together, dinner together, talk on the phone. And he would describe the Christian music industry this way. And he would say there's 3 types of Christian music buyers, mm-hmm. okay? And I won't go into too much detail. But as he mapped that out, I looked at it and I'm like, it's the same person 3 different times. Mm. It's, and so as it unpacked it, I realized what he was doing is he was targeting his audience at such a specific level, mm-hmm. that he knew who he was going after, and he went after that audience 200%.
Right.
He didn't care about the overflow. If you got overflow, that's gravy. Mm-hmm. If you got, don't even get me started on crossover movies. That's all I hear all day for 10 years is crossover movies.
Yeah.
We can talk about that if you want, but that's the biggest fallacy of thinking in my mind. But I guess in a nutshell, the data of targeting your audience. Here's who's going to buy the first ticket to go watch my movie. Here's their age. Here's where they live. Here's their ethnicity. Here's their socioeconomic status. Here's where they live, and so on. And you go through all this thing, and you get the data. And then I'll take that and compare and say, this compares with, and then I will put my comps together. Like, this compares with the same audience, let's say, for Facing the Giants, Fireproof, Courageous. I'll just use the Kendrick brothers. Mm-hmm. And then I say, okay, So we're doing, let's say we have we're targeting the fireproof crowd, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they did $34 million at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
So if here's how we're going to target the exact same crowd for fireproof. It's 71% women, ages 28 to 50. They live within 500 miles of Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
They're married. They have kids. They are churchgoers, and you go on and on and on. And so that's the first person. I'm only targeting that person. Her name is Becky.
Right. Oh yeah, I read about Becky. Yeah.
And so, sorry, my answers are so long-winded.
No, this is so amazing.
To sum that up, it's like once I've targeted that, then I'll take like the numbers of, say, Courageous. I actually sold against Courageous once, and I said, okay, Courageous is 33 million. Okay, if we get everything right, get exactly the same marketing, exactly the same audience, we target everything from the script, the marketing, everything, we're targeting the exact same audience. That's my crowd. Mm-hmm. Okay, Fireproof or Courageous did 33 million. Could we do half of that?
Mm-hmm.
We get everything right. And then this is me going infomercial. I go, wait, don't answer. Take half of that. Now cut that in half.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing a quarter of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now cut that in half. Now we're doing an eighth of that. Can we do an eighth of that? 10%. Let's go down to 10% now. Can we do 10%? Can we get 10%? What about 5%? Right. Could we do between 5 and 10% of what the Kendrick brothers do? Yeah. And by that point, if I've done it right, again, I'm acting like it's all about me, it's all about the Lord. Right. If I've done that, Kristen, then usually some of the best was like, Brad, I think you're going to do better than that. I'm like, okay, great, but can we do 10%? Right. 90% of the people that watch the Kendrick brothers movie are not going to want to watch this film. 90%. Mm-hmm. We're only looking for the 10%. Mm-hmm. Can we do that? And if they go, yeah, of course, I go, okay, then let's back the numbers into that. Yeah. 10% is 3.3 million at the box office. Mm-hmm. Can we do 3.3 million at the box office? If you think that way, if I think that way, they go 3.3, I think you could do 7 million. Okay, yeah. Can we do 3.3 million? If that's the case, then back the numbers. Don't spend more than targeting, then only target 3.3 million and make your spend and your ask for investors and distribution and P&A money, make it based on a 3.3 million return as opposed to a 30 million return. Right. Because in most cases, last thing I'll say, in most cases, a $3 million box office success is a failure. Yeah. But not if you've only invested a total of 500,000. Right. That make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, you should have got me in the afternoon. I'm more mellow, and in the morning and I'm coffee, I just talk a lot.
I have a whole page of notes, and I'm hoping we can have you back on another episode to talk about, because you did so much for Selfie Dad that made it universally like a classic, in my opinion, based on everything I learned about literature. And I'm hoping we can have you on again to talk about this, because, I mean, you just blew my mind about tackling the marketing up front. I've never heard anybody say that, and that's going to help a lot of filmmakers. So I want to just say thank you, Brad Silverman, writer-director of Selfie Dad, starring Michael Jr., amazing movie, and I'm hoping we can have Brad on again, because he's only just begun to touch upon the surface of filmmakers to give them advice. So I just want to say, Brad, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.
Well, a pleasure to be with you anytime, Chris, and we appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep it up. I think it's great that you're helping get the word out, because certainly the end goal for all of this, I'm talking all business stuff today, but obviously the end goal for all of this is to continually upgrade and create platforms that more and more people who want to honor God and proclaim His word through media. I'm just excited that you're helping get the word out so that we can get more and more great projects made.